So we've received our first top-off payments here in Minnesota. My earnings increased drastically on Uber and slightly on Lyft. Let's take a look. Alright, so a quick overview on the minimum earnings guarantees that were implemented here in Minnesota on December 1st. We are guaranteed earnings of $1.28 per mile and 31 cents per minute during period 3 when you're transporting a passenger, and period 2 pickup mileage does not apply to this guarantee. And at the end of a 2-week period, they'll take our total mileage in period 3 and total time in period 3 and multiply it by $1.28 and 31 cents per minute, and if our earnings aren't at that amount, they will top us off to reach that amount. Tips are 100% ours. That's not included in this earnings guarantee. Also referral bonuses, if we receive any of those, that's not included. But surge, turbo, wait time, cancellation fees, those are all included in the earnings guarantee calculation. And again, these top-offs are calculated every 2 weeks. They're not calculated weekly. I did receive my initial top-off payments from both Uber and Lyft, so let's take a look at those. Here's the summary that Uber sends out. They show us our period 3 on-trip minutes, and then they show what the period 3 on-trip minutes minimum compensation should have been. Then they show our on-trip miles, and for some reason they got this figure wrong in this summary. It's not correct. But here's what they include at the end of our weekly summaries, and they did actually get the mileage correct on these weekly summaries. No idea what happened with the mileage calculation on this summary, but they did get the top-off payment correctly calculated. My net earnings excluding tips were $582.88. What I should have been paid under the guaranteed minimum was $697.54, so my top-off payment was $114.66. Now here's what Lyft sends out. They don't include any period 3 calculation like mileage or time. They just include earnings. My eligible earnings were $348.13. My guaranteed minimum earnings should have been $407.57, so my top-off payment was $59.44. Again, on Uber, they give all the mileage totals there. I did actually calculate my Uber totals on my own, and they did match. On Lyft, they don't give you those mileage and time totals, so I calculated that as well on my own, and it does match. Alright, so those are the top-off payments, but what do they mean? How much did I earn in November versus the first 2 weeks in December? So in November, on Lyft, my hourly rate was $21.79. Also, my dollars per mile was $1.34. My utilization on Lyft, which is booked hours versus online hours, was 61% on Lyft. In November on Uber, my hourly rate was $19.04, and my dollars per mile was $1.17. And my utilization was 56%. And during the first 2 weeks of December, under the new minimum rates, my hourly on Lyft was $22.76, and my dollar per mile was $1.60. My utilization on Lyft was 49%. My hourly on Uber jumped to $29.66, and my dollar per mile was $1.75. And my utilization on Uber was 56%, the exact same as November. I saw a slight hourly increase on Lyft of 97 cents, about 4%. The biggest gain was made on dollars per mile. I was earning 26 cents more per mile. That's a 19% increase. So if I earn $500 on Lyft, that's an increase of about $22. Now on Uber, I saw my hourly rate increase by $10.62. That's a 56% increase. My dollars per mile also increased 58 cents. That's a 50% increase. So if say I earned $500 on Uber, that would be an additional $278.87 in earnings. Alright, so a drastic increase on Uber and a slight increase on Lyft. I was surprised it wasn't as high on Lyft, but my utilization was down compared to November. Also though, my hourly rate on Lyft in November was $2.75 higher than Uber, so there's that difference. And the main differentiator here in Minnesota under the new minimum rates between Uber and Lyft is just sheer volume of rides. Uber probably has 3 or 4x the amount of requests from me compared to Lyft. And under these new minimum guarantees, the upfront fares on longer rides really don't matter at all. You want to look at that period 3 mileage. If that period 3 mileage is like say longer than 10 miles, you're going to get paid great for that ride. And because Uber has the much higher volume, I have more opportunity on Uber compared to Lyft. This is a big differentiator between Uber and Lyft, and this gives Uber a major edge. The only way that Lyft can really lock me in is if they're giving me back-to-back requests of really long desirable rides. Otherwise, Uber could just dominate them. Also, the majority of requests that I'm accepting are longer rides. My average distance per trip during period 3 during these first 2 weeks was 9 miles between both platforms. This is drastically different than what it's been for the past few years, where those longer rides, anything longer than 20 miles, right now I will snap accept under these new minimum rates, but previously for the last couple of years I would never accept those because they were paying garbage. Now anytime that I see that's longer than 10 miles during period 3 and does have a short pickup, I am snap accepting those. I can't accept them fast enough. So again, I saw a 56% increase in earnings on Uber during the first 2 weeks of December versus November, a slight increase on Lyft, but my hourly on Lyft in November was $2.75 cents higher than it was on Uber. But I'm loving the new minimum rates here in Minnesota, and every market should experience this. Every driver deserves a raise like this, especially with the fact that Quest and Ride Challenge bonuses are basically non-existent. But what do all of you think? I'm going to continue to share my experience here in Minnesota, so make sure you're subscribed. If you've yet to download the Solo app to help you manage your rideshare business and earn more, our referral link is in the description. We also have a free newsletter, and the link to sign up for that is in the description as well. If you've yet to watch my previous video on being deactivated from Uber, be sure to check that one out. Thanks again for watching, and drive safe. Thanks.